This is the story of King Marko, the medieval ruler of Macedonia, the last Christian king. In Macedonia, there are still vivid memories of the strong and powerful King Marko. A real historical person, a man who, together with Alexander the Great and Saint Clement of Ohrid, were under the most famous people from Macedonia. His name has not perished, and in present Macedonia it is still said that King Marko is alive and hiding in his caves throughout his old kingdom. Before every Easter, he would go out to visit his fortresses and only the righteous could see him. There are legends, according to which he would return when his sword would get out of the stone. Sounds familiar, yes. He was a great hero. Like the great King Alexander of Macedon with his horse Bucephalus, King Marko also had a faithful horse that was his companion and accompanied him in all his fortunes and misfortunes. Marko's legendary friend was the horse that was remembered in legends and songs as Sharko, Sharets, Sharkalia. Wherever Marko and Sharko stepped, traces remained, which today are still called footprints, steps, feet. The hills from where they jumped are called the hills of Marko and Sharko. There is no other hero who left such a mark in the toponymy of today's Macedonia. Folklore tradition have preserved many songs and legends about his exploits, about his love life and many brides, and even that he married a fairy, but also about his friends and enemies, visits of the old taverns, bets, stubbornness and boasting. He is most often presented as a brave and strong man, who was fair to the weak and powerless and cruel to injustices. The most traditions, songs and legends of all the historical figures from Macedonia have been preserved for King Marko. One of the oldest travelogues about Macedonia recounts the consequences of the Battle of Kosovo and the Battle of River Maritsa, and it provides us the information that the memory of this historical person has remained alive since the 14th century, when King Marko ruled Macedonia, through the following centuries until today. The differences between the historical and the mythical character of Marko can be easily seen, as well as the similarities between his historical biographies and folk songs and legends. His uncle Uglesha ruled from Sur, the eastern border of Macedonia in those times, and his father Volkashin was a leader in Prilep. They ruled the territory of Macedonia, as did Tsar Samuel centuries before them. After Volkashin captured Skopje, Prizren and Pech, Marko was probably born either in Prilep or somewhere in the vicinity of today's Skopje. And it is very possible that the information from the old books about his eternal resting place, again near Skopje, is correct. Marko's monastery near Skopje and the monastery St. Archangel Michael in Prilep, frescoes depicting King Mark can be seen. According to the historians, Marko was born in 1335 or 1345. What is known is that he was the son of Volkashin and Elena, who after Volkashin's death became a monk as Eurosima, that he had brothers and sisters, and historians have not found official information about Marko's offspring. However, the people preserved folklore memories of King Marko's children, and there are several folk songs with lyrics about his son and daughter. It was recorded in many travelogues that from the time of Marko until a century ago, hardly anyone had not heard of King Marko from Prilep. What was happening in Macedonia before and during the century when King Marko lived? The rule of the medieval Serbian Nemanjić dynasty with Macedonia was from the conquest of Skopje by Milutin in 1282 and the agreement with Carlo of Valois when he received as a dowry the territories around Prilep and Štip, which was the border of Ovče Pole, until before the First Battle of Kosovo in 1369, when all the Serbian nobles and princes supported by the King Uroš lost a battle with Volkashin and Ugleša, and Uroš was captured by the large army of the brothers. The last Serbian king Uroš is a fourth generation from Milutin. Milutin's son was Stefan Dechanski, who was partially blinded due to involvement in a rebellion against his father, and in his biography it is written that Saint Nicholas restored his sight in Ovča Pole. His son was Stefan Dušan, who was crowned in Skopje, and his last one who had no offspring was Uroš. Volkasgan was Stefan Dušan's godfather on his church marriage and baptized his son. The coronation of Stefan Dušan in Skopje and the proclamation of him as the King of Macedonia and all others in the region were undoubtedly supported by the Macedonian nobles and clerics of that time. The collapse of the Serbian state of the Nemanjić dynasty was also influenced by the power of Volkashin and Ugleša, who were rulers in the most important part of the kingdom, Macedonia. Historical data show that Volkashin was previously proclaimed king and co-ruler of Emperor Uroš, and Marko heir, but also that Volkashin abolished Petra's authority over the churches in Macedonia and, although for a short period of time, still ruled with the support and recognition of the Ohrid archdiocese. The data informs us that the rest of the Serbian dukes and princes did not agree with the recognition of Marko as heir and opposed his right to the imperial crown after the death of his father Volkashin. The information about the death of Volkashin and Ugleša on Maritsa, when they set out to conquer the capital city Edrine, differ from the folk myths according to which Volkashin survived and later killed the king Uroš. The memories of those historical times are also remembered through the folk songs and stories, and there are many songs, legends but also historical papers that showed the autonomy of Volkashin and Marko in Macedonia. The absence of the Serbian despots at the Battle of River Maritsa, their previous refusal for Volkashin as a king and Marko as heir, together with the preserved myths, legends, folk songs and scientific papers show that the king Volkashin and his brother Ugleša made a way for Marko's autonomous rule at Macedonia. Even though the neighbors of Macedonia tried to present King Marko as theirs, most of the depictions of his life forget to mention that almost 2 decades he resisted the Ottomans and preserved a small kingdom, after which he became a vassal to the Sultan. He lived and ruled in hard times, and the memory of his life is not just a legendary tale, but a proof for a heroism of the last Christian king of Macedonia.